Look at the ground beneath your feet. In the rolling hills of the American East and the deep woods of the Appalachians, there is a ghost standing guard. It isn't a tombstone, though it has outlived every person who was alive when it was placed. It is a simple fence post. If you find one made of black locust, buried by a farmer in the year 1850, there is a high probability that it is still standing today, solid, sound, untouched by the subterranean decay that claims everything else we build. To a modern homeowner, this sounds like a fairy tale. We live in the era of the 15-year rot. We go to the big box hardware store and buy pressure-treated lumber, green-tinted and soaked in a cocktail of chemicals, only to watch it crumble and soften within a decade and a half. We have been conditioned to believe that wood is a temporary material, a fleeting convenience that must be replaced, repurchased, and reinstalled every generation. But as economic archaeologists, we have to ask the question that the industrial complex wants us to forget. Why did we stop using the wood that lasts forever? Black locust is a timber that outlasts concrete. It is a biological miracle that remains perfect for a century without a single drop of chemicals, without a moment of maintenance, and without the need for human intervention. For 300 years, this wood built the backbone of America. Then, with the clinical precision of a balance sheet, it was erased. Not because it failed us, but because it succeeded too well. In a world of recurring revenue, a material that lasts forever is not an asset, it is a threat. To understand the power of this forgotten titan, we have to look at the moments when America's survival depended on its strength. We go back to 1812. The young American Republic was at war with the British Navy, the most formidable maritime force the world had ever seen. The British warships were the gold standard of engineering, held together by massive pins made of English oak. But oak has a secret weakness. It rots when trapped in the damp hull of a ship. During the heat of battle, when American cannonballs struck the British hulls, the rotted oak pins would shatter, and the great planks of the British ships would separate, sending the pride of the empire to the bottom of the sea. The Americans, however, had a secret weapon growing in their own backyard. They used trunnels, tree nails, made of black locust. Black locust is unique. It doesn't just resist rot, it hardens with age. When those locust pegs got wet, they swelled, creating a bond tighter and stronger than iron. When the cannonballs hit the American ships, the wood didn't shatter, it held firm. The British lost battle after battle, unable to understand how these upstart American vessels were absorbing such punishment. It took them decades to figure out the archaeology of the American hull. By 1820, the secret was out, and Philadelphia was exporting over 100,000 black locust nails to England every year. The British Empire literally rebuilt its navy using American wood because they realized that nature had provided a level of durability that human technology could never match. If black locust was the material that saved the Republic, why isn't your deck made of it today? To find the answer, our dig takes us to the year 1933. This was the year the handshake economy of natural durability met the industrial economy of chemical dependence. An Indian chemist named Santi Kamesam invented a mixture known as CCA, chromated copper arsenate. It was a potent brew of chromium, copper, and arsenic designed to be forced into the fibers of cheap, soft pine. On paper, it was a miracle of science. It allowed lumber yards to take the weakest, fastest-growing trees and give them a simulated durability. By the 1940s, this treated lumber began to dominate the American market. The corporations realized a dark mathematical truth. There is no profit in permanence. If a farmer buys black locust fence posts in 1950, he won't need to buy them again until the year 2050.
That represents 3 generations of lost sales. But if you sell that same farmer a piece of pressure-treated pine, you know with mathematical certainty that he or his son will be back in 15 years to buy it all over again. The chemical heist wasn't just about preserving wood, it was about preserving the replacement cycle. We traded the fixed anchor of natural durability for a chemical subscription. We were told that Black Locust was too difficult to work with, that it was a weed tree, and that modern science had provided a better way. But the archaeology reveals the truth. Science didn't find a better wood. The accountants found a better way to make you pay for the same fence twice.
As we move our archaeology into the 1980s and 90s, we see how the industrial system engineered Black Locust out of our collective memory. If you walk into a Home Depot or a Lowe's today and ask for Black Locust, the teenager behind the counter will likely look at you with a blank stare. This is by design. Major lumber distributors refuse to stock it because Black Locust refuses to fit into the industrial straight line. You see, Black Locust is a rebel. The trees grow crooked as they compete for light. They have tension wood that can warp or jump when it hits a high-speed industrial saw. It is incredibly hard, boasting a Janka hardness of 1,700 pounds, nearly double that of white oak. To mill Black Locust, you need patience, sharp blades, and a respect for the material. The modern industrial sawmill doesn't have time for respect. It wants soft, straight, predictable pine that can be processed at lightning speed and soaked in a vat of poison. Because the big box stores wouldn't carry it, the supply chain for Black Locust became self-reinforcingly broken. Contractors stopped asking for it because it wasn't in the yards stopped carrying it because contractors weren't asking for it. We were moved from the sovereignty of choice to the prison of convenience. We began to believe that the green-tinted wood in the aisle was the only option, unaware that a superior, toxin-free alternative was growing in the vacant lot just 5 miles down the road. We traded our golden age knowledge for industrial ignorance, and our bank accounts have been paying the rot tax ever since. But the story of Black Locust is deeper than just a timber war. It is an ecological drama. While the chemical companies were busy selling us poison to protect our wood, they were also selling us chemicals to protect our soil. Black Locust is one of the rare nitrogen-fixing hardwoods. It has a symbiotic relationship with rhizobium bacteria that colonize its roots. These bacteria pull nitrogen from the air and convert it into a natural fertilizer that enriches the earth. A grove of Black Locust doesn't just grow wood, it heals dead soil. Studies show that the soil beneath a locust tree has up to 3 times more nitrogen than the surrounding area. This tree is a self-contained fertilizer plant. In the Golden Age, farmers knew this. They planted locust on their worst land to bring it back to life. But the fertilizer industry, much like the lumber industry, saw this as a threat to their bottom line. Why allow a tree to fertilize the field for free when you can sell the farmer a bag of synthetic nitrogen every spring? They began a propaganda campaign to reclassify the Black Locust as an invasive weed. They told us it was a nuisance, a trash tree that ruined pastures. They encouraged us to poison the stumps and clear the groves. We were convinced to kill the very thing that was trying to heal our land, all to ensure that we remained dependent on the industrial life support system. We traded biological sovereignty for chemical compliance, and in the process, we lost the most resilient partner the American farmer ever had. So, as we stand in the industrial graveyard of rotting decks and chemically soaked soil in 26, what is our golden insight? How do we use the archaeology of the locust to protect our future? First, we must reject the cult of the temporary.
The story of Black Locust proves that permanence is possible, but it is rarely profitable for the person selling it to you. In your own life, whether you are building a fence, a garden bed, or a legacy, look for the untreated and the durable. Seek out the local sawmills and the small-scale producers who still value quality over throughput. Paying a premium today for a material that lasts a century is the ultimate wealth preservation strategy. Second, recognize that sovereignty often looks like a weed. The things the industrial system tries to suppress, the crooked tree, the home repair, the independent garden, are usually the things that provide the most freedom. Black Locust survived because it is unkillable. It regrows from the roots, it thrives in fire, it laughs at poison. We must adopt that same locust resilience in our financial lives. We must build structures, both physical and financial, that don't require a subscription to maintain. Third, understand that legacy is what remains when the chemicals fade. The fence posts your great-grandfather sunk in 1920 were an act of love for the generations he would never meet. He wasn't building for a 15-year warranty, he was building for a 100-year future. The Black Locust is waiting in the wood. It is a reminder that nature's gold standard has never changed. We traded the rot-proof for the rot-prone because we were told it was easier. But true ease isn't found in a cheap purchase, it is found in a permanent foundation. Use this insight to stop buying the disposable dream and start reclaiming the golden age of quality. Before we go, I want to ask you, do you have an immortal structure on your property? A stone wall, a locust post, or a hand-forged gate that has stood the test of time? Share your story of permanence in the comments below. Let's remind the world that some things were never meant to rot. Thank you for watching the Golden Age Insight.